Bhagavad Gita, chapter 2, verse Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Janaballabha Girivaradhari Jaya Gopi Janaballabha Girivaradhari Yashodanandana Vraja Janaranjana Yashodanandana Vraja Janaranjana Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Yashodanandana Vraja Janaranjana Yashodanandana Vraja Janaranjana Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jayam Vishnupada Paramahamsa Paribrajakachaja Stotara Sata Shri Srimad Aisi Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai Prem Se Kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopinath Shamakunda Radha Kunda Giri Govardhan Ki Jai Shri Vrindavan Mathura Dham Ki Jai Navadip Mayapur Dham Ki Jai Jamuna Mai Ki Jai Ganga Mai Ki Jai Bhakti Devi Ki Jai Tulsi Devi Ki Jai Samaveta Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. Bhagavad Gita, chapter 2, verse 41. Vyavasayatmika buddhir ekeya kurunandana Bahushakayanantascha buddhayo vyavasayinam Vyavasayatmika buddhir ekeya kurunandana Bahushakayanantascha buddhayo vyavasayinam Vyavasayatmika buddhir ekeha kurunandana Bahushakayanantascha buddhayo vyavasayinam Vyavasayatmika buddhir ekeha kurunandana Bahushakayanantascha buddhayo vyavasayinam Vyavasayatmika, resolute Krishna consciousness. buddhi, intelligence, eka, only one, iha, in this world, Kurunandana, O beloved child of the Kurus, Bahushaka, various branches, he indeed, Ananta, unlimited, Cha also, Buddhaya, intelligence, Avyavasayinam, of those who are not in Krishna consciousness. Translation and purport by Srila Prabhupada. Those who are on this path are resolute in purpose, and their aim is one. O beloved child of the Kurus, the intelligence of those who are irresolute is many-branched. Purport. A strong faith in Krishna consciousness that one should be elevated to the highest perfection of life is called Vyavasaya Mika intelligence. The Chaitanya Charitamrita states, Shraddha Shabde Vishwash Kahe, Shudridya Nishchoy, Krishna Bhakti Koile, Sarva Karma Krita Hoy. Faith means unflinching trust in something sublime. When one is engaged in the duties of Krishna consciousness, he need not act in relationship to the material world with obligations to family, traditions, humanity, or nationality. Fruitive activities are the engagements of one's reactions from past good or bad deeds. When one is awake in Krishna consciousness, he need no longer endeavor for good result in his activities. When one is situated in Krishna consciousness, all activities are on the absolute plane, for they are no longer subject to dualities like good and bad. The highest perfection of Krishna consciousness is renunciation of the material conception of life. This state is automatically achieved by progressive Krishna consciousness. The resolute purpose of a person in Krishna consciousness is based on knowledge. Vasudevan sarvam iti, sa mahatma sudurlabha, by which one comes to know perfectly that Vasudev, or Krishna, is the root of all manifested causes. As water on the root of a tree is automatically distributed to the leaves and branches in Krishna consciousness, one can render the highest service to everyone, namely self, family, society, country, humanity, etc. If Krishna is satisfied by one's actions, then everyone will be satisfied. Service in Krishna consciousness is, however, best practice under the able guidance of a spiritual master, who is a bona fide representative of Krishna, who knows the nature of the student and who can guide him to act in Krishna consciousness. As such, to be well versed in Krishna consciousness, one has to act firmly and obey the representative of Krishna. And one should accept the instruction of the bona fide spiritual master as one mission in life. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur instructs us in his famous prayer for the spiritual master as follows: Yasya prasadat bhagavat prasado, yasya prasadan nagati kutopi, dhayam stuvam stasya, yasya trisandyam vandaguro shri charanaravindam. By satisfaction of the spiritual master, the Supreme Personality of Godhead becomes satisfied. And by not satisfying the spiritual master, there is no chance of being promoted to the plane of Krishna consciousness. I should therefore meditate and pray for his mercy 3 times a day and offer my respectful obeisances unto him, my spiritual master. The whole process, however, depends on perfect knowledge of the soul beyond the conception of the body, not theoretically but practically. When there is no longer chance for sense gratification manifested in fruitive activities, one who is not firmly fixed his mind is diverted by various types of fruitive acts. Vyavasayatmika buddhi ekeya kurunandana. Baushaka yanantascha buddhayo vyavasayinam. As I keep repeating, the concept of understanding Krishna consciousness is based on understanding that I'm a spirit soul. Without understanding that I'm a spirit soul, nothing makes sense. You can study the Vedas, you can study the Bhagavad Gita as much as you want. But unless you come to the point of understanding that you're not the body, then nothing makes sense. Therefore, one who understands that he is not the body, that he is spirit soul, that is called ekeya, that is single-minded. As soon as you understand you don't belong to this body, you don't belong to the attachments of the body, family, country, nation, community, society, none of these things have meanings anymore. But we live in a world where the bodily conception, it is so powerful that it is almost unheard of that people understand their spiritual nature. They even say, I have a soul. In other words, they believe they're the body, and within the body there is a soul that they have, the body. But no, it is not like that. I am the soul, and the soul has a body. Just like I have a shirt. I have a shirt because I have a body. But it is not the same thing. The shirt is temporary. It serves a purpose, of course. It serves a purpose because if I have a shirt, then I cannot walk out of the street naked. I have to be dressed. So similarly, the soul, when it becomes independent, when it exercises its minute independence to compete with God, then it requires an atmosphere, it requires a situation, circumstances where this activity can be carried out. You cannot be independent of God in God's presence. It's laughable. God is the creator of all the universes. He is without any flaw. He is with unlimited power, unlimited knowledge. We cannot compete with God. To compete with God is like a child. Child wants to compete with the parents. So the parents, they give the child a little facility to compete. A little house, little teacups, little pot, little toys that imitate the activity of the parents, of the grown-ups. And the child is absorbed and he's thinking, I am independent, I am working, I am playing. But actually, it's ludicrous. There's no comparison between the child and the parent because the parent is maintaining the child. Now, it may be a stretch for people who are in bodily conception to understand this, but you can understand that you are not independent. There is no question that you can say, I am independent. No, we are born with nothing, and everything we require to maintain our life, everything we require to satisfy our activities and our desires is provided by us by a superior authority. And when you start looking for the superior authority, within the heart, it will guide you to the answers of the question of who am I and what am I doing in this material world. Therefore, Krishna says, Nitya Nityanam Chetanas Chetananam. Nitya Nityanam. Out of the Nityanam, of the many, many eternals, there is one Nitya, one particular. Nitya Nityanam. Of the many, there is one. Chetana Chetananam. These eternal living beings are conscious. Of the conscious living being, the aggregate conscious living being, Chetananam, there is one which stands aside. He is Chetana. And what is the difference? Eko bahunam yo vidadati kaman. That one, that Eka, that one conscious living entity He supplies all the needs of the many. Eko bahunam, of the many, that single individual, vidadati, gives kaman, satisfaction for all the needs. Tan atmashtan ye upasanti dira. One who understands this becomes dira, he becomes fixed. He becomes enlightened. Becoming enlightened means to understand that I don't have to suffer in this material world. That the comings and goings of the material nature are actually a temporary situation. So dhira means that I understand that I don't belong to this material world. And when I understand this point, by the grace of Krishna within the heart, we form a bond, we form a friendship. After all, Krishna is Suridam Sarva Bhutanam. He is the friend of every living entity. And especially in Krishna's incarnation, avatar, as Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he came to exhibit his friendship. Ami bina bandhu ar ke ache tomar. My dear friend, Lord Chaitanya, he says, Jiv Jago, wake up. Wake up from this dream of playing with these little toys. Wake up from playing house. Jiv Jago, koto nidra jao maya pisa chira kole. How long are you going to be in illusion? On the lap of illusion. How long are you going to stay there? Bajibo bolia eshe samsara bhitore. You came into this material world promising to worship me. Because when the living entity is within the womb, the suffering is so intense that this suffering draws Krishna's attention. It's just like if I want to draw your attention. If I really want to draw your attention, there is two ways. One way is out of intense love, I can attract you. And another way is by intense pain. Anybody who walks in the street and he sees somebody who is in pain, who is suffering, he's automatically attracted to go and help him. This is our nature because we are servants. We are all brothers. We are all connected. We are all brothers and sisters. So we want to help each other. That's a natural thing. So when we're in the womb, the situation is so perilous. It is so painful because we are sitting there for many months inside the womb of our mother. And we cannot move. We cannot act. We cannot satisfy our desires. So that intense pain draws us or pushes us to ask, why? My dear God, because we are eternally connected with God, then the prayer to him comes naturally under this intense pain. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says, when you were suffering so much within the womb, you promised that when I take birth, I will worship you. Please, God, get me out of this painful situation. Let me take birth. Let me get out of here. And I promise you, I will not forget you. So, but, bhuliya rohile tumi avidyara bore. However, when you took birth, you forgot about me. When you take birth, you forget everything that happens before. There is a parallel in medical science. It's called amnesia. If somebody has a very, very painful experience, a very, very painful accident, the trauma of that accident makes him forget. In fact, there is a whole science of psychiatry built on this propensity of the living entity to forget his painful experiences. Sigmund Freud, he built his whole reputation on making his patients understand that the trauma they are suffering today is based on the trauma they suffered as children. And the trauma that is suffering today is based on the disappointment of being able to enjoy, especially sex life. Therefore, this idea of forgetting, it is not strange, it is something which is real. So Mahaprabhu said, you took birth, and that trauma, that experience, many babies are born stillborn. The painful is so much, they're born dead. The other day I was watching a movie of a farm, how a cow gives birth to a calf. They have to tie a rope inside the cow to the calf's feet and pull him out. It is so difficult for that birth to take place. And similarly, human birth is also painful. It is so painful that we forget. So, Buliya rohile tumi avidyara bore. Mahaprabhu says, you went through this painful experience, you forgot about me. But I didn't forget about you. That's the beauty of Krishna. We may forget him, but he's our loving Father, he's our friend, he's our best wisher. He never forgets us. 24 hours a day, he's sitting in our heart, waiting for us to interface with him. So, Mahaprabhu continues, Tomare lo ite ami hoinu avatar. I have come down to this material world as an avatar simply to liberate you, simply to help you. Ami bina, without me, apart from me, bandhu ar ke ache. What friend do you have? Ami bina bandhu ar ke ache tomar. Without me, you have no friend. I am your only friend, and I can prove I'm your friend by bringing you the medicine to cure you from your disease, from your illusion, from your identification of the body. Enechi aushadi maya, nashi baro lagi. Nashi baro lagi means to destroy. Destroy maya, illusion. With what? Aushadi, the medicine of Hare Nama Maha Mantra. Therefore, Prabhupada again and again insisted that the main activity is to chant the holy names of God. In Kali Yuga, there is an ocean of fault. Dosha nida. It is like an ocean of inauspicious activities. If you go everywhere, I was reading today, there are 200 nations on this planet, 200 groups of millions of people who believe in their motherland, in their flag, in their language, in their community. 200 groups of such people. So illusion is permeating the whole material world. And this illusion is called an ocean of fault. You cannot even begin to count. If you look at the history of the human race, it is full of pain, full of trouble, full of killing, full of war, full of everything except permanent happiness. We are struggling to find this permanent happiness. So, and especially in this time in which you live, which is called Kali Yuga, the path towards enlightenment, the path towards happiness is closed. There is no gradual process. Previously, in Satya Yuga, Tetra Yuga, Dwapara Yuga, there was a process for understanding Vedic knowledge, for understanding who we are. Veda means knowledge. And Krishna says, Vedais cha sarvair ahameva vedyo. Out of all the Vedas, I am to be known. So the Vedas, the whole program of the Vedas, is to allow the living entities to satisfy their material desires, but not to lose sight of the ultimate goal, which is to become God conscious. And in Satya Yuga, the first Yuga, which lasts for 1.8 million years, in that Yuga, Kritayam Dhyate Vishnu. The process was to meditate. People were so spiritually potent, they lived for 100,000 years, they could go to the forest, they could sit under the tree, and they could immediately concentrate on the soul within the heart without any external necessity. They were that powerful. Then, after the Satya Yuga finished, the Treta Yuga began, which is 1.2 million years. And Tretayam Dhyate Makai. And during the Treta Yuga, the planet Earth was under one king. And this emperor, he had many subsidiary kings. These kings had one quality. They were Raja Rishis. They were kings, but they were also enlightened. They were rishis. They understood the purpose of life, and they engaged their populace, they engaged their subjects into the process of sacrifice. Process of sacrifice is easily understood. Nothing belongs to me. I'm taking somebody else's property, God's property, therefore let me offer it to him. Let me acknowledge. Sacrifice means to acknowledge God as the supplier. Eko baunam yo vidadati kaman. That one who supplies the needs of everybody else. Then, as time went by, the Dwapara Yuga began, which lasts 800,000 years. So Dwaparyam Paricharayam. In Dwapara Yuga, the process was to worship in a temple. The kings would erect temples, and people had the freedom to come to the temple and worship the Lord or worship the demigod, understanding the connection between the demigod and the Lord. Both during the process of sacrifices and the process of deity worship, the Narayan Shila is present. Even if you go to a Shiva temple or a Durga temple or a demigod temple, not necessarily a Krishna temple, you will find that the Narayan Shila is there, because all the Brahmanas, the priests, they worship Narayan in the form of the Shila, of the stone. Therefore, the connection between the demigod and the Supreme Lord is understood. But all this is a gradual process. Then Kali Yuga began, which lasts 800,000 years, 400,000 years. And Kali Yuga, as I explained, it is a dosha needed. It is an ocean of fault. However, it has one good quality. He eka mahan guna. Asti hi eka mahan guna. It has one, he, certainly. What is that? Kirtanad eva Krishnasya Mukta Sangha Parambrajet. Simply by chanting the names of Krishna. Mukta Sangha, you become free from this bodily conception. Parambrajet, and you go to the supreme destination. You become one. Once you understood, once you're lost in the forest, you don't know which way to go. You're simply meandering in circles. But once you find the path out of the forest, once you find the spiritual master who can say, my dear sir, this is the way out of the forest. Once you find the guide, then you simply follow. You follow directly to that path to take you out of the forest. This is called Ekeya Kudunandana. This is a symptom of someone who has actually understood what is Dharma, what is religion. One who understands what is the purpose of life. He understands that that is the only thing. Nothing else matters. Everything else is simply a huge ramification of different paths going here and there, leading nowhere. Therefore, in the 15th chapter, Krishna says, Udvamulam adaha shakam. This material world, it is upside down. It is like the reflection of a tree in the water. Udvamulam, the roots going up, adaha shakam, the branches going down. So, Urdhvamulam adaha shakam, praur avyayam. This is the material world. It is the roots of the material world. They move in so many directions, and they're working under the modes of material nature: goodness, passion, and ignorance. These three modes are within us, and they interface. The combination of these different modes, they create different situations. Some of them are in goodness, you make progress towards the light. Some of them are in ignorance, you make progress away from the light, and some are in between. By mixing these three powers, sattva, raja, and tama, goodness, passion, and ignorance, all the different varieties of life are manifested. Just like the three primary colors, RGB, red, green, and blue, mixing it together, you come to an unlimited palette of different shades. So the material world, Krishna says, Chandamsi yasya parnani yastam veda savedavit. That this upside down tree, the branches are the leaves of this tree are the Vedic hymns. In other words, the purpose of the Vedas, the purpose of transcendental knowledge is to gradually bring us to understand that I am in an upside down position. How do I know? I know because I want to live eternally. I want to be happy. I want to be free from pain. I want to be full of knowledge, and I'm not getting it if I identify with the body. So, the purpose of life is not to identify with the body, and the wonderful opportunity we have through our connection to Srila Prabhupada and to his books is that we can reconnect to the Supreme Soul within our heart. And once this connection is made, everything else becomes superfluous. That's the symptom of someone who is spiritually advanced. Someone who is on the spiritual path is that he loses interest in all material activities. He does the material activities, he cooks, he bathes, he has a family, but his main interest is his connection with Krishna. Thank you very much. So tonight we have last week, day before yesterday on Wednesday, I couldn't continue the class after I finished because I had a visitor. But tonight we are free. We see that Anna Maria has checked in. Hare Krishna, obeisances to the devotees. Monday also. Good evening, Prabhus. Admavidya is there. Good evening and Hare Krishna. Albert DeFoss, Vishnivamsa. Mukesh Bauri, Hare Krishna. Albert DeFoss says, Vishnivamsa says, no amnesia, please. Jiv Jago. Yes, we don't want amnesia. So if any of you have any more comments, you are free to put them. Let's see. Andres Chederberg is also here. Such a beautiful reiteration and transmission of this glorious concept of the Lord. My dear friend, Das Asmi, I'm simply the servant of the servant. Playing at the lotus feet of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Anna Maria says, thank you kindly for the class. I would like to hear more about Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. Well, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur was a great acharya who lived in Vrindavan. He was a spiritual master of Baladev Vidya Bhushan. And his Gita Bhasya, or his commentary on the Bhagavad Gita, and his commentary on the 10th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam is very popular. Prabhupada used it as a base. He many times quoted from Vishwanath Chakravarti. If you read the Krishna book, that is very much following in the footsteps of Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. Good, thank you very much. If you have any more comments, please feel free and I will monitor them later. Hare Krishna. See you next Wednesday.